On January 22, 2000, SFX Entertainment held the first and possibly only Monster Jam Freestyle Motocross crossover event, held inside the Houston Astrodome in Houston, Texas, and dubbed the Ultimate Freestyle Spectacular, where fans saw some of the best FMX riders in the world competing for a $15,000 purse alongside the monster trucks on the same track in the same show, with the entire track being a smorgasbord of FMX hills, van stacks, bus stacks, and other unique obstacles. However, despite a show of this magnitude taking place, almost no photos or video related to the show have been shown publicly, with only brief pre-show footage, pit party photos, and one small action shot being made available, the latter of which is the only officially released piece of media by Monster Jam related to this event. Why is this event so obscure, and what do we know about it? That's what I will shed light on in this video. The 2000 Monster Jam winter season, starting in November of 1999, saw a major shift in both tone and format for Monster Jam's events. Freestyle was no longer just an encore for the fans or a warm-up for the monster trucks, usually with the championship race being the grand finale, followed by a tandem freestyle. But this season, freestyle became a scored competition. Extra obstacles had been placed on the track on occasion in the past, but with this new competition, the Monster Jam track crew took plenty of creative liberties at certain events. This led to the reintroduction of the pyramid, whether it be 2 cars in a van, 2 cars, 2 vans in a bus, or any combination of the different vehicles to create a large obstacle for the monster trucks to conquer, almost like a pyramid or a mountain. Perhaps the earliest example of an obstacle like this would be for Jack Willman's school bus crush that he performed in the 1980s with Taurus. Yet this was a full 15 years prior to this event, and the trucks were not expected to hit these obstacles slowly either. In fact, they would hit these obstacles quite hard in the year 2000. While they might seem quaint nowadays, this was a major shift in focus, and showed that Monster Jam wasn't going to take freestyle lightly, being the biggest stage for monster truck competition. As mentioned in the previous video, this was the birth of what would become the modern era for Monster Jam, with freestyle being the new platform for monster trucks to push their boundaries, and in many ways, this event's layout would be a key example of such. Now, in the year 2000, Monster Jam held more than one event with a strong freestyle motocross feature, such as the second Pontiac show or at World Finals 1, but this is the only event of its kind where it was freestyle only, with the monster trucks being a secondary act to the freestyle motocross riders. There was an event in 2006, also in Houston, Texas, where it was a Monster Jam event, yet without any monster trucks. Instead, it featured freestyle motocross, Robosaurus, and a car crash stunt. This is likely the closest another Monster Jam event would come to being like the one in question from 2000. The lineup for the monster trucks included Brian Barthel in Monster Patrol, Ron Nelson in Bustin' Loose, David Morris in Equalizer, and Brian Womack in Barefoot. Certainly not a disappointing lineup of trucks for the time, but for the cavernous Astrodome, a noticeably small lineup. In contrast, on that same night, the Minneapolis Metrodome featured a whopping 17 truck lineup. Why Houston couldn't borrow 2 or 3 more trucks from this event is a mystery, but for some of these lineups back in 2000, it was all or nothing when it came to turnout. It may also show how prominent the freestyle motocross feature was compared to the monster trucks, giving the monsters less time. The following weekend, the Astrodome would feature 18 trucks in competition, being an event with no freestyle motocross to speak of. As mentioned before, this event was freestyle only, so for the monster trucks, everything on this massive course was fair game, and apparently they attacked everything. Obstacles included 2 school buses, multiple minivan car pyramids, a quote marina with multiple small boats, and 6 FMX jumps with 60 to 65 foot gaps in between them. Now back in 2000, a double school bus stack would be like seeing a 50 car stack today. So for these drivers to so aggressively take on this track is noteworthy to say the least, especially considering that only a few months beforehand, you'd be lucky to see even a van on a monster truck track for freestyle. This may have been the biggest and most daunting track ever constructed for a monster truck at the time, which would arguably be broken 2 months later by World Finals 1's track. As far as the show itself goes, there was a lot of action and a lot of carnage. The following information comes from the USHRA.com write-up for the event, written by Melanie McKim. Cowboy Kenny Bartram would win top prize with a noticeably impressive performance against stiff competition in freestyle motocross. Now on to the monster trucks. Monster Patrol would go first, popping several wheel stands to nobody's surprise, knowing Brian Bartha's reputation, before taking on a double bus stack. Bartha would sail over the stack and break off one of the truck's wheels, ending the run immediately. Bustin' Loose would be next, taking on much of the course before heading to the bus stack as well, but either broke a wheel off or blew a tire, ending his run early as well. Barefoot would go third, hitting most of the obstacles on the track before saving the buses for last. Unfortunately for Womack, he too would suffer major damage as the truck would break a full-length bar and be the third victim to the double bus stack. Last but not least would be David Morris and Equalizer, which would unfortunately blow an engine before the end of what was a decent performance, but none of the monsters will be able to successfully conquer the bus stack. The event also saw famed daredevil Seth Enslow jumping a 175-foot gap only weeks after suffering a life-threatening injury while attempting another long jump. Some of you may have seen the Unchained FMX documentary, which features a brief segment of Enslow practicing his long jump as the track is being constructed days prior. There's also a different Seth Enslow documentary from 2000 that features additional footage of the same practice jump, in which you can get a few additional glances of the track. Unfortunately, no footage of the actual jump itself has been made available. This is where the interest is piqued. Many obscure monster truck shows have little to no public documentation, which is not uncommon for an older show like this. But this one is very unique, especially for the time. The format seemingly being a one-off, the track being massive, and the trucks taking it all on without hesitation. This event is undoubtedly one of the key factors in the birth of the modern freestyle era, and showed what drivers would be willing to do to satisfy the fans and win a competition. That being said, no information was given as to who won the event, if anybody. Now, in spite of the seemingly epic nature of this event, from every account that I personally have heard from those who were there, this show was nothing to write home about. In fact, some have even said it was the worst event they had ever gone to in the Astrodome, or just period. The official USHRA.com recap of this event was much more generous with its praise, but that should come as no surprise. The 4 trucks they had weren't enough to make the Mosh Truck section worthwhile, despite their valiant efforts. That being said, the quality of the performances is not as significant as the uniqueness of the show itself, as well as the track that was built for it. The one action shot we do have shows that this is Bustin' Loose hitting the double bus stack, posted on the old USHRA website on a separate article. Unfortunately, this is the only photo we have of the show itself. There are also 7 pit party shots that were taken by Corey Schwab, which you've seen throughout this video. Apparently, multiple FMX riders who were at the event have requested footage of their performances, yet all were denied. Monster Jam themselves have never released any video of the event, not even on a Crash Madness video, adding to its mystique even more. It's possible that footage was used in a local TV commercial, but there's no official evidence of this yet. If you've seen my Milestone Motorsports video, you would know that, for reasons that are still not 100% clear, certain teams that signed with the company Milestone Motorsports in the year 1999 were no longer featured on Monster Jam's television or merchandising immediately afterwards, most likely due to their Milestone contracts conflicting with Monster Jam's business, which would include merchandising and promo materials. This would explain why you wouldn't see 3/4 of this lineup on Monster Jam television past the year 1999, as well as on most home releases, but the lack of at least Bustin' Loose's crash on the 2001 Crash Madness 2 release is curious to say the least. Of course, there's always been great crashes that were mysteriously left off home releases, with Crash Madness 2 being a good example of a video with having numerous clips that aren't crashes at all, but one would think that with even an event this significant, it would be best to showcase it in some form or fashion, especially with the action involved. Was the event truly as bad as some say? Does Monster Jam have any access to the video that was recorded of the show? And why is this event so elusive? And why is it so hard to find evidence of this event taking place? Now, as the creator of this video, I decided to put my money where my mouth is when it comes to finding evidence of this show taking place. I've been trying to get in touch with certain people for over 2 years, especially those who were known to go to Houston events and take photos, but with almost no results. So I've decided that as of 2022, I'm offering up some of my own money as a bounty for you to share photos of this event. Now, of course, I can't promise to back up the Brinks truck to anybody who happens to have photos of this event, but I do plan on rewarding those fairly for sharing video of a significant show, whether it was a good show or a bad show. That is made clear in the Facebook post that I made regarding this certain situation. It's a sliding scale based on what is shown in the video or pictures that are found, but I do plan on rewarding those who have something to show and not to be a cheat. Not only that, but media preservation for older monster truck shows can be very poor at times. For a sport that's taken place in stadiums and arenas across the country for 40 years at this point, it's something that has a surprisingly little amount of media preservation for some of these events that took place in front of tens of thousands of people at certain times. Not only do I have a collection of almost 60,000 photos from monster truck events, I've made it my new goal to collect physical media from monster truck events, and if nothing else, to help preserve someone else's media. This event is perhaps my white whale, but I think it's important for any event, no matter how significant it is, to be preserved in some way, especially for a sport like this, which can see so little of it at times. That being said, if you happen to know somebody or you yourself have any video or additional information about this show, please feel free to share it below in the comment section or tell a friend. It would be greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy learning about this event.